Welcome to day 3 of cycling from Amsterdam to Bruges. This third day we start in Antwerp. There's a lot to see. This is going to be a little bit longer video. We start this day in the port of Antwerp. We'd had some pretty strong thunderstorms the night before, so this day we were pretty much decked out ready for more rain because the forecast was a little bit ominous. Here, as we start the tour of Antwerp, we go first past the Maas Museum, but we're going to come back to that later. There are some other things to see near the port of Antwerp that are quite interesting. Notice the cobblestones? They're a little bit rough to ride on. Here we are at our first stop of the day, right across the street from what used to be a warehouse. This building has been modernized and converted into shops and office space. You can see on the wall above the doorways to the right machinery that used to be used to lift warehouse material, pallets and boxes and other things, up into the upper levels of the warehouse. As you can see, you can walk all the way through the building and out to the street on the other side.
So that attaches all the way up there to that hook, and a stroke of the piston lifts things up.
Our next stop is that brick building that we'd already ridden past. That is the Maas Museum. Maas is M-A-S. Now I'll show you some views from the top of the museum. Here's a church that's right down on the port. Here are some other buildings near the port and some wind turbines off in the distance. The Maas Museum collects information and artifacts from around Europe, but particularly focused on Antwerp and neighboring areas. The museum has over 500,000 items in its collection, and it rotates things on display, so there's a constantly changing opportunity to learn new things about the area. After visiting the Mosque Museum, we rode along the edge of the port to an older part of the town. Eventually, we reached the old city center of Antwerp and received a briefing about what we were going to find there.
Paid for by the city of Antwerp. It is a belfry, a bell tower, and those belfries were used to warn the people, the inhabitants, when the enemy came or when there was a fire, and also to secure the privileges. The cities had to pay up to the lord, to the count or the king, in order to have the right to have a market or staple right or any other facility they would like, and because the count would be stronger than the city, they thought, let's keep them safe. They did it in this belfry tower.
In the middle of Antwerp is the statue of Silvius Brabo, who was a mythical Roman soldier that killed a giant and threw the hand into the river. The origins of the name of Antwerp come from a combination of the two words hand and werpen, or hand throw. In this clip you can hear a Jewish band warming up because there's a Jewish wedding in the city hall. After our time in the city center, we explored some of the free alleyways, which have been left open so that people can have free access. One of them even goes through the middle of a restaurant.
How is an alley? So, in former years, this was built as a home for a rich family. But later on, the glove makers would live here, and one of their tasks was to toll the bells in case of danger. But you can imagine if they had to run from here to the tower, climb the tower and toll the bells, half the city would have been burned down, but they did their very best. A couple of years ago, the city of Antwerp had the brilliant plan to make a parking lot here. And then there was a gentleman, very young, 21, Axel van Voort, and he bought the lot and he preserved it. And quite nice of him, of course, that everyone is allowed to get in, walk and see the beautiful system for free. You already smell a very nice
GoPro.
smell.
Here we see that the alleys literally go through restaurants that the public can walk through as people are dining. Here we are, waiting near the port for the waterbus to take us down the river to where we start cycling.
GoPro, stop recording.
Here are some photos of the water bus. And this is the route it took us along the river until we were ready to ride. A short way up the road, and after a lunch stop, we ran across this castle with beautiful grounds.
Carolyn? No. Okay. We're missing Carolyn, yeah. Nope, not here yet.
Immediately after passing the castle, we went down this gravel path, which was quite beautiful. Here there's a water mill, and it's now trapped behind a dike that was put in to protect the town from tides from the ocean. In order to operate the mill, they have to open up the dike above the mill and let the water flow back out.
GoPro.
Here we cross the river Scheldt, or Schelde. It has incredible volumes of water, and it's flowing very rapidly. After crossing the river, we went through a very nice wooded area with fancy homes and even a castle or two. There was a sign along the way that warned in Dutch of wildlife, which kind of upset me a little bit.
Stop recording.
That's because a couple years ago, I was on a bike ride and a deer tried to kill me. After we got through the forest, we stopped at this museum and had a wonderful local beer. I have to admit it was pretty strong, and I felt a little tipsy afterwards. A short ride after the museum, through a bit of a rain shower, and we made it to Sint Amands. Here's an aerial view of the town taken from my drone. After dinner, the guides took us to a local artisan who takes stones from the desert in Africa and makes art out of them. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to like and subscribe. Join me on my next video when we travel from Dendermonde into the city of Ghent, which is beautiful.